What is up, everybody, and welcome to my review of A Creature Was Stirring, a holiday horror film that was released straight to VOD within the last week. So I had never heard of this movie. This was not on my radar whatsoever until I saw one of the movie's stars, Scout Taylor Compton, on Twitter, I believe, maybe even on Instagram, promoting this because they had just dropped it suddenly on VOD. It was just in time for the Christmas holiday, and I was like, let me give this thing a shot. I can have room for one more horror movie, especially if it's a holiday horror film. Maybe this will be a hidden gem. Who knows? And essentially what you have here with the storyline is that you have a mother and a daughter that are secluded in this house during a massive blizzard. The daughter has some sort of an ailment going on, some sort of a sickness to where the mother's trying to keep her body temperature within a certain range, or something is going to happen to her. And then, right in the most inconvenient time whatsoever, Scout Taylor Compton and her brother break into the house for shelter. And so now you have this very multi-layered, tense situation to where we don't know exactly what is going on with this little girl, and we are very curious. Is there something that's going to happen? There's also some suggestion in there that maybe the mom is just crazy and there's nothing wrong with this little girl. You don't know if these two strangers that have now come into this house are the people they are presenting themselves to be. If there is something going on with this daughter, is that going to put these strangers in danger? There's a lot of different things going on that makes for a really interesting plot. But unfortunately for me, while there was a lot of potential here, while the initial setup and the plot was interesting, while there was a lot of potential to do some cool things with the Christmas holiday, by the end of it, the movie just did not work for me whatsoever for two very major reasons that I will get into. But really quick before we dive into the good, bad, and very ugly regarding A Creature Was Stirring, if you also have the potential to be snowed in and isolated from everybody else, one thing that you definitely want to have on lock is your skincare. So check out the sponsor of today's video, Geology. Well, after 7 years of reviewing movies and creating content for YouTube, one of the first casualties has been my skin. Crow's feet developing from long nights and stressful editing sessions, wrinkles on my forehead from reading troll comments. Luckily, I've been able to implement a great and easy to follow skincare routine by using Geology. Geology is a 26-time award-winning skin, hair, and body care company with over 7,000 5-star reviews. They create simple and effective skincare and hair care routines that are customized just for you. Their products are built around just a handful of powerful, proven ingredients that have been trusted by dermatologists for decades. Because at the end of the day, skincare is science and shouldn't feel like a gamble. Geology Skincare helps you fight acne, reduce oiliness, prevent wrinkles, combat dark and puffy under eyes, have smoother hydrated skin, and even target signs of aging. And now the best in the skincare game have expanded their reach into hair care and body care with co-washes, shampoos, conditioners, body washes, deodorants, and much more. My favorite of their new products is absolutely their deodorants. I love the natural scents, I love how clean they go on and how they stay on clean. They don't leave those nasty white circles on the inside of your black t-shirts, of which I have many. I also have really started to like their shampoo and their conditioners, and I love the fact that you can read all the natural ingredients right on the front of the packaging. So click the link in the video description and take their 30-second diagnostic quiz. Tell them about your skin and your goals, and a team of dermatologists will design a personalized routine just for you that is shipped directly to your door. And right now, for a limited time, they are hooking you up with an insane offer. Use my code CODY70 or scan the QR code on the screen, and they will give you an exclusive 70% off of their award-winning skincare trial set. That's over $49 in products for only $15. On top of that, you can save big by getting up to 30% off of the add-on products of your choice when you add it to your trial. This is one of the best deals that you're going to find, so snatch it up before it's gone. Take charge of your skin, body, and hair today by using Geology. That's Geologie. And thank you to Geology for partnering with me on today's sponsorship. Starting off with the positives, as I've already pretty much said, I liked the initial setup to this movie. I liked the plot, I liked the overall struggle that we are going for here. It sets up a lot of interesting things to explore, it sets up a lot of interesting possibilities, and a lot of potential for some really cool twists or turns or reveals by the end of it. It sets up familiar elements of family drama and a lack of trust, as well as this looming creature arrival. There's also the whole home invasion side of things with the two stranger characters and their opinions and their feelings towards the family drama of this mother and this little girl. And despite many of the issues of the film that started to pop up throughout the runtime, I was still determined to watch through the entire thing, and I was still very much intrigued with how they were going to wrap up all of these elements that they have introduced. I think the cast here is really solid. You're basically just introduced to 4 characters, and that's the entirety of your cast. You have Chris Chrissy Matz here, who most people know from This Is Us. I've never seen that show, but she gives a really good performance as this mother that is just in emotional turmoil throughout the entire runtime. I've always liked Scout Taylor Compton. We all know her as Laurie Strode from Halloween. Annalise Basso plays the daughter who is being secluded, who's supposed to have this ailment. We've seen her in a number of Mike Flanagan projects. She's very good as well. And rounding it all out is Connor Paolo, who I recognize from the Stakeland movies, which if you get nothing else out of this review, watch Stakeland and Stakeland 2, because they're awesome. I also felt that despite the crushing limitations of the budget here, that they do a pretty decent job with their creature design and some of their gore effects. Some of it's actually kind of unexpected because it seems like it's going to be more of a talky type horror thriller. It's going to be more about suggestion, but when you actually do go beyond suggestion, you actually get to physically see things happen, they do pretty decent with their special effects. It's convincing. And now moving on to the negatives. This is unfortunately one of those times where the ambition of the idea being presented just far exceeds the budget that they had to work with. And sometimes situations like those can produce some extreme amounts of magic to where the right filmmakers and the right crew that are put under these very strenuous situations, a limited budget, limited resources, that just, it births a lot of creativity. This, unfortunately, is just not one of those times. You see all the potential of the things that they want to do here, but at almost every turn, you see the crushing limitations of this budget that just, it doesn't match the ambition that they are going for. The movie all takes place in one setting in this house. It's very, very cheap production as far as giving you this Christmas ambiance. It's just red and green LED lights. It doesn't give you the holiday vibe whatsoever, other than just the suggestion that there's snow outside and some of the decor in the house. And to me, that's always disappointing, especially when it's a horror movie or an action movie that's not your traditional Christmas tale. I like to have a little bit more effort put into actually giving you that holiday feel, because it's so surface level to just put some red and green lights in the background and say that this is a Christmas movie. And as much as I do think they did a pretty decent job with their special effects, there's also a bit too ambitious of an idea with their creature design that you'll see in the posters and the wallpaper. It's like this porcupine type monster, and I think the creature was most effective when it was completely in the shadows, because as soon as you start to see the level of budget that they're working with when things come into the light, it ceases to be as effective. And even though that was in my positives, it's almost to the point where I feel like their ambition to show some of their practical effects and their gore and their creature design might have stifled how effective their creature could have been under this budget. But even more so than the unfortunate restrictions of the budget, to me, the biggest issue with this film is the overambition of the screenwriter. There are already a ton of different ideas at play with just the surface level storyline that I have already given you and what the movie kind of sells itself on and sets up throughout the first two acts. But unfortunately, this is one of those times where the screenwriter is going for something extra. There is a piece of commentary, there is a message, there is an overall theme that they are trying to bring home secretly throughout the film. And then by the third act, when that starts to show its head, for me, it completely decimated anything that they had done successfully in the first two acts. Sometimes it can be a nice surprise to have some really interesting things going on at surface level, and then by the end of a story, you start to realize there was this much bigger point at play. There was these things being boiled under the surface that start to rise in the end of the story, and you go, wow, didn't see that coming, and now everything that I saw before has now been reframed, and it feels so much more profound than I would have given it any credit for. This is not one of those times. Unfortunately, as soon as this other thing starts to show up in the third act, especially the way that the movie decides to close everything out in the last 5 minutes, it just completely tanks everything else that was going on in the film. It just doesn't make any sense. Even though there are hints that there's going to be some sort of a reveal and there's going to be some sort of a revelation by the end of it, to the extent that they take it in the final minutes is just way out of nowhere, unexpected to the point where it just confuses you and annoys you, and it just feels like it was unnecessary. It just, sometimes when you try to be really smart and really clever with your ideas, it makes your ideas dumber. And for all of the issues that I had with the budget limitations and some things that I have yet to even discuss, if things would have just wrapped up in a very satisfying way or a cool way, I could have at least still recommended this movie to certain horror fans with certain horror tastes. But when you get to the end of the film and you see what they were trying to do in the final bits of the story, it just makes the entire rest of the movie feel like you wasted your time. It feels like everything else that you just watched was inconsequential and amounted to nothing. And finally, the other big issue here, which also deals with the screenwriting and the script, is that the dialogue in this movie is ripe sometimes, especially Scout Taylor Compton's character. Unfortunately, she's a very good actress, and there's moments in this movie where you see that. Everybody in this movie is a very talented actor. We've seen them do things better in other projects. We've seen them give really good performances when they're given things better to work with. But especially Scout Taylor Compton's character here, there are moments where they really try to crank up the religious side of her character, because essentially her and her brother are like missionaries or something that have come into this house looking for shelter. And every time the movie stops to have her give any kind of a religious rant or a sermon or have any sort of a faith-based lecture to any of the other characters in this film, it just doesn't feel like words that actual humans would say. I mean, we all know somebody like that. We all know somebody who is highly religious. We all know somebody who is maybe a bit too religious, to where that's basically their entire personality, and no matter what conversation you have with them, it somehow always spins back to faith. We've all been there. This doesn't feel like that. This feels like somebody who heard about something like that and tried to write dialogue to convey that, and it just doesn't come through well whatsoever. It's so on the nose that it just took me out of the movie every single time that her character was doing this. And by the end of the film, it's also another element that just feels like it went nowhere. It felt like it was unnecessary. It felt like there was no actual point to having her character be that way. There's very obvious directions that you could see a character like that being put into this situation for a reason. But by the end of A Creature Was Stirring, it just felt like you could have just had her be a regular person with morals and got to the exact same place at the end. So overall, guys, it's a shame. I was really hoping that I was going to be able to come out with a video just before Christmas, a little horror hidden gem for everybody to throw on while the holiday season is still going on, but this was just one of the bigger disappointments that I've seen in 2023. A lot of potential here, but was not executed well whatsoever for my taste. Well, that's it for this one, guys. If you enjoyed that, please click over here for all of my other 2023 new release reviews. I'm also going to put my holiday horror movie tier list up here, which is very recent. If you want to check out a number of other holiday-themed horror films, many of which are better than this one, please like, share, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss everything in the future. We got a lot of end-the-year stuff coming up very soon. And as always, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean you have to be.